So Dot writes, any tips for an aspiring playwright? She's in 7th grade. And then Dot also asks if I had done any playwriting. Oh, great. Well, that's a great question. One of the things that I think helps writing to come alive for students is to remember that there are many forms of writing. Writing is not just stories and poems, although stories and poems are wonderful forms, and not just essays and papers for school. Um, Dot. Dot is in Comox, BC in Canada. That must be Vancouver Island. Wonderful. Your neighbors to Marie's Cozy Beach Cottage. How beautiful. But there are other forms too. There are forms such as plays. And I actually have a personal fondness for plays and playwriting. I actually do. You must have read my mind. I do myself write plays. And one of the things I love about plays is that a play takes writing off of the page and puts it into people's mouths, into actors' mouths, and puts it into the context of some theatrical setting, even if it's just a simple kitchen or something like that, or some more fantastical location conjured up by a playwright's imagination. A play allows us to play with language as people use it, as they speak it. And one of the beautiful things in a play is that you can have your characters speaking very colloquially. They might speak very ungrammatically, in fact. Characters may have quirks. They may never finish their sentences. They may never say what they mean. So tips for an aspiring playwright. Let me give you 3 tips, Dot. 3 tips for an inspiring playwright. First, get some friends to read your plays out loud. When we write a play, we write the words that the characters say. And if a play is being produced professionally, the actors and the director will basically take the words that the characters say and run with it. Now, when you read a printed play, you'll see that there are indications as to how a character is saying something. It might say something like Dot, in brackets, sadly, oh, I wish we had seen the circus, or something like that. Now, those brackets, sadly, or standing up, or sitting down, those are actually often added not by the playwright, but by the stage manager. In the process of staging the play for the first time, those bits of information get put in. But the playwright's responsibility is to the words that the characters say. So if you get your friends to act out your play for you, you might find your friends as actors discovering things that you hadn't intended, but which are wonderful. You might have thought or heard in your mind's ear a character saying a line of dialogue in one way, but they actually said it a different way. They said it playfully, or they said it in a way that made you laugh when you didn't expect it to be funny. So this is one of the most wonderful ways to explore what it means to write a play. The second tip is start with a 2-character play, because really, at the heart of it, well, there's several different things. In plays, we have characters who give speeches, monologues, or soliloquies. And so if you want, you can start with a character giving a speech. But the dramatic fun of playwriting really begins when you have 2 characters who are speaking to each other. And so one of the best places to start is, rather than thinking, oh, I need to write a play with 17 characters and 5 entrances and exits and 2 acts and an intermission, start with a single scene with 2 characters in some location. And what do they say to each other? And play around with that. It's like a musician playing scales on the piano. You can fine tune your ability with just 2 characters. Then you can move up to 3 characters, and something very interesting happens when you go from 2 to 3 characters. When you have 2 characters, you have one relationship with 2 people in it. But watch what happens when you add a third character. Suddenly you have not 3 relationships, but 6. What do I mean? Well, now you have, let's see. I'm going to have 3 characters. One is Mr. Froggy, one is my kaleidoscope, and one is me. So if we have 3 characters on our play, now there's Frog's relationship to the kaleidoscope, 1 relationship. Frog's relationship to me, a 2nd relationship. Frog's relationship to both of us as a pair, as friends, as a couple, or whatever, a 3rd relationship. Then there's the kaleidoscope's relationship to me, a 4th relationship. Kaleidoscope's relationship to Frog and me as a group, 5. And then my relationship to Frog and Kaleidoscope as a group, 6. So suddenly you see how even adding 1 character creates a whole, a much more complex interweaving of relationships. And that's why it can be helpful to start with 2 characters and then see what happens when you add a 3rd character. So that's a second tip for an aspiring playwright. And the 3rd tip is simply to find plays to enjoy yourself. You can easily find recordings of plays. You can go see plays that are being performed. You can even read plays. And if you're reading a play, it's a different kind of experience than watching a play, because you actually become a kind of director. You stage the play, but in your mind. And so you have to imagine the play taking place. It's a different kind of experience than reading a story or a poem. But if you start to read plays as a playwright, you'll start to learn some of the tricks that playwrights use to make their work come alive. So that's a question, that's an answer to your question, Dot. I hope that's helpful. And you're free to follow up with any more questions in the chat. I know your audio wasn't working, but you can follow up in the chat or in an email later on. Oh, wonderful. And all good wishes to you and the aspiring playwright. I look forward to seeing what she produces. If you want to send anything along just to share it, I'd be delighted to see one of her little plays.